I've always loved Lovecraftian horror. The tentacles, the squids, it's very deep sea. And a lot of the stuff that I make is inspired by the ocean because, the ocean has some creepy stuff in it and it scares me, okay? The ocean, off limits for me. So I wanted to make a new mask that is inspired by that Lovecraftian style, kind of like a squid monster mask. So that is what I decided to do, to create my own full Lovecraftian inspired horror mask. All right. Like most of my sculpts, I go into this not really knowing what I'm going to do. I have a basic idea, and the idea is Lovecraftian horror. Could be a fish, squid, out of this world type of thing. But I knew I wanted to do kind of like a deep sea squiddy thing. My first idea was trying to do like this big, open mouth monster, but I absolutely hated it. And it just was not going to work the way I wanted to do it. So take all that away and start playing around with some shapes, which I ended up not liking too well. So you'll see here that I start to cut it down with some wire and to start over. But at this point, I'm just like, ooh, does he want to have big lips, big duck lips? And it wasn't working. So I cut it down and I start over again. And sometimes it's good just to start over. Added clay here. And now I'm thinking, you know what if this, character was kind of like a squid based thing? What if he had like a tentacle coming out of his mouth, going up underneath his lip, and you'll see here that I'm gonna have the tentacle kind of like pop out of his eye here. So I build up this eye here, and I just realized, let's create a different look for this dude. Instead of having like pretty symmetrical looking dude with two eyes, why not pop his eye out and have the tentacle coming out of his right eye? And this just gives it a little bit more asymmetrical feeling and a little bit more character, right? For the top of the head, I wanted to create almost like a crown, like this. The sea monster is like the king of the sea, the Lovecraftian sea or something, So I wanted to give him this kind of crown, like he's maybe a king or a prince or something like that. He's seen as, a big kahuna within the underwater scene. You know what I mean? And here I'm just playing with an idea of having these weird fins come all the way, kind of like wrapping around the side of the head, coming all the way down to the back there, like that. And I really like this look. And honestly, you can't have, like a Lovecraftian fish squid monster without fins. You gotta have fins. I feel like it's a law somewhere, right? It has to be. The Lovecraftian law. With this guy, I wanted his back to be chunky. He's not a thin monster. He's pretty fleshy, some loose flesh hanging. He's kind of chunky, especially the back of his neck. The neck was looking a little bit too thin, so I just started to build out a little bit. Because this is going to be a mask, right? And I got to make sure that there is enough clay on this armature to where when I cast it and make a latex mask of it, it's going to fit, right? And when you do cast it in latex, it does shrink about 10%. So you got to kind of counter that in as well. You want to make sure there's half an inch and a half of clay, something like that. I'll have to look that up. I can't remember. But make sure it's like a good amount. You don't want it too big or else it'll be like flopping everywhere. Unless you're going for like a big mask that is not going to be wearable, but just for more collection reasons. But this one's going to be wearable. There's going to be enough space in the back and the front, I believe. I started putting these little cylinders on the fins. They'll be in the front and the back area. And in between each of these little cylinders, I'm going to have them kind of running down pretty far. And in between will be these kind of like holes, like vents. Maybe that's like how he breathes and hears, right? Through these little gilled vents in his fins, which, when you're coming up with the characters, you gotta kind of think outside the box. Like, how will this monster hear? How will he see? Can he smell? He's underwater. Can he smell underwater? I don't know if that's a thing. Can he taste underwater? Stuff like that. Recently you just saw that I used a heat gun with this clay to do fine detail. You want to dry it out, kind of like like hard leather, because it is wet clay. So you dry it out a little bit, and then you can get in there and do some really fine detail work, like you'll see here. With this will be kind of like the nose, which is kind of pushed to the side and drawn up, so it looks like the tentacle underneath is is moving under and pushing that nose that nose area up, I should say, and doing a little bit of design work on the nose and just adding in wrinkles here. What's really good idea when you're working with this clay is, you do the wrinkles, and then once you get those wrinkles in, you take some water on a brush and you kind of brush it down, and that'll really take those edges down a bit and make them softer, and then the wrinkles, well, they'll look really good. I wanted to do a design on the top of the head, and I didn't want to just do wrinkles everywhere. I mean, I've done that before, so I want to do something different. So I decided to create kind of like this scaly texture on top of the head here, like the crown, just to kind of break it up a little bit. And it's a really easy technique. You just take one of your wooden tools, that kind of like finger point at the end, and you push it down and up a little bit, and it creates this cool little scale texture, which I really love. And then, of course, spraying it down with some water, using a soft brush to kind of blend things in and make them not so harsh. And then I got to do the detail on the tentacle here. Just trying to make it look unique, like as a tentacle. I didn't want it just to be like a smooth tentacle. I wanted to give it a little bit of like oomph, you know what I'm saying? Like, in that tentacle. So you know that it is a tentacle. How many times have I said tentacle in this sentence? Probably a bit. Take a shot every time I say that word. I didn't want the tentacle just to be laying on top. I wanted it to be like pushing into the skin. So I create this cool little skin detail where that tentacle is pushing up. Almost like he's scratching the side of his temple like, what shall I get up to today? Shall I eat more semen of the ocean that the humans have? Or will I just go for a nice jaunt down into the Marianas Trench? Since this is a full mask, you're going to see this from the front and the back. So you want to make sure, you do the detail in the back as well. You don't have to go crazy with it, but, put something there. And this guy, his back fat's going to be very roly-poly-esque. So I'll lay in the big shapes first, the big swooshes, and I come in with a very fine detailed loop tool made out of a guitar string, and we lay in kind of that finer work. Then with a spray bottle, some water, and a soft brush, you just blend it all down, make it very soft looking, and get rid of those hard edges to kind of make those wrinkles look a little bit more realistic. And same idea applies to the side of the head here, creating some skin texture and, more wrinkles, because god damn do I love wrinkly monsters. I like my monsters like I like my women wrinkly. When it comes to detail work or sculpting in general, you want to start with your big shapes, right? Start big, and then you work your way down to smaller detail. And with the eye, I wanted this eye to really have like a bigger eye bag, kind of like a sagging. So I go in, add a little bit more clay, and then I just sculpt in the wrinkles to make the eye a little bit more saggy looking. All right, he's all done. You're gonna see some paper towel on him, some little bits, because I've had him covered up for a little while, and I kept, keeping him nice and moist. Because with this kind of clay, you gotta keep it nice and moist. So I kept this stuff on a little too long. I didn't change it out enough, so now some of the paper towel is kind of stuck inside the sculpt. So I gotta dig some of that out and then resculpt some areas, but he's all done pretty much. And I'm pretty happy with him. We have like this tentacle coming out of his mouth, up underneath, kind of like picking at his eye, and then coming up, scratching his temple kind of thing, right? Very happy with how he turned out. I am very eager to make a mold of this guy and cast him in latex and all that, and very proud of this one. You know, I feel like I've captured that weird Lovecraftian vibe, like a sea monster in the deep. As you can see back here, you can see some of the digging that I did with the paper towel. I'm pretty sure some of it got a little bit moldy, which happens with earth-based clays. This area here, I'm gonna have to fix. But once he's all casted and made up of latex, I will be painting him. Maybe I'll make a video on that as well if you guys want to see that. And as well, if it all goes nicely and according to plan, then I will be selling this mask and many other copies of it on my website once my website is all finished, which should be hopefully in the next month or so. So I'll let you guys know when that releases. Let me know your thoughts. Leave a comment down below. What would you like to see sculpted next, if anything? You know, what kind of mask should I do? If you have any ideas of what you'd like to see, any of the processes, any like advice videos, tips, things like that. I'm very curious as to know what you guys want to see next. All right. I'll see you, well, not you, but you in the next hot video. Have a good night, y'all.